Hey there, welcome to Functional Mental Fitness with Alexei. It's strange saying that name. It's brand new. It's something I'm going to have a crack at. During the COVID lockdown, I've had a bucket of time, like some of you, like myself, have been stood down to really reflect and think about what I want to do. A lot of that time I've spent sort of maintaining some work projects, ticking away on some side bits and pieces. I've actually been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a bit of a nerd. So I have enjoyed the free time to be a nerd. But now I think as we start to come out of lockdown and as our brains flip out of crisis mode and we sort of look at the impacts that COVID-19 has had on, Victoria, Australia, and the world, I really want to share some just practical tips to looking after your mental health, looking after your colleagues in the workplace, their mental health, and your family and friends and communities. I've spent the last 10 years working in a variety of settings around social impact, inclusion, and mental health. And hopefully these videos will really enable you to take some practical steps, maybe inspire you a little bit. I'll share some great links and resources. And also I'm a qualified mental health first aid instructor. So if you're looking for that sort of next step as to what you can do to support people around you, look after their mental health, feel free to flip me a message and I can provide some options there as well. So getting on with it. Today I want to talk about two different tools that I use every time I run mental health first aid, every time I have a coaching conversation with someone about looking after their mental health, looking after someone else's mental health. And these two tools are really practical. The first one is just the knowledge that we feel emotions in our body before we think them. Now, for some of us, like me, when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. But we do, we might feel tension in our chest, pressure on our chest. We might feel that tension in our shoulders, or, we might clench our fists up if we're getting angry or frustrated. When I get anxious, butterflies in my stomach, I move around a little bit, I can't sit still, I fiddle, I get distracted, I pick things up and I play with them. There's all sorts of things that happen with our body before our brain goes, hey mate, you're upset, you're angry, you're frustrated. And then what follows often, sometimes even before we think that we're angry or we think that we're anxious, we react. And our reaction can have a real impact on our well-being, on the well-being of people around us, on our, the nature of our relationships with others. It can have a bit of a cost associated with it. So this idea and being able to recognize feelings in our body before we think them is really important. I'll give you a quick example. So when I first started to use this idea of being in tune with my body and how I was feeling to recognize different emotions, it really changed my relationship with my mum. My mum and I are really, really close, Eastern European background. She's always dreamed big for us kids. There's three of us in our family. I'm the middle child. And she would do anything to help us out. So, a couple of years ago, I was writing job applications. I was trying to sort of shift my career. And I'd say to mum, oh, hey mum, I'm going to go for this job. What are your thoughts? She was actually a careers counsellor, so that's why I went to her for help. And she'd always come back with great ideas, and she wanted to have coaching sessions with me and talk through, how I could write my application, how I could sell myself, to this business that I was applying for a job with. And of course, that process is really challenging. If you're applying for a job, you feel quite vulnerable because you're saying, I'm good enough for this. And that can be really challenging. And if I was feeling stressed or tense, and then mum would call me and say, I've got all these ideas, and she'd have all this energy, and I feel really overwhelmed, and my body would tense up. And I'd hold of this tension. And nature of, son and mother relationship is sometimes that there can be a bit of tension in those relationships, particularly those ones that we're really comfortable with. So I would turn around and be like, oh, mum, leave me alone. You're so annoying. I don't want to deal with this right now. And as I got better and better and better at recognizing my physical response, mum might call me or she'd talk to me about something that I'd find challenging, or even better, other people would talk to me. But it was really in this relationship that I first started to notice it, that I'd have this body response and I'd go, oh, I'm getting stressed. And I'd be able to take a breath or use a couple of different coping strategies to take some time out. So that's why it's really important to recognize and understand that we feel feelings and emotions before we think them. They're in our body. They're in our hands, or in our chest, or in our stomach, in our back, in our legs. They're all through us, even in our thoughts. They can even our thoughts can become disordered, and we're feeling it in our body before our brain goes, hang on, you're angry, or you're sad, or you're happy. Yeah, so look, hopefully that's something you can reflect on. Many of you might be going, hey, I already know that. That's great. Well, awesome. But it's something you can come back to and reflect on as we kind of progress out of all of this, to really be in tune with how you're feeling. Or you might be able to point it out to other people. Hey, mate, I'm noticing you're holding a lot of tension, or you're looking like you're feeling a bit ill there. And you can actually identify for other people before they recognize that they're not feeling great. And help them to self-identify. And then once we know something's going on, well, that means we can do something about it, doesn't it? So the second thing I want to talk about today is the window of tolerance. Now, the window of tolerance is a simple concept. It's a way we can look at thinking about like a fuel tank for a car. We know our car is full. We've got 650 kilometers until we run out and empty. That's me and my Suzuki Swift. Good mileage there. But if we've got an empty tank, we know that we're going to have to stop into a petrol station soon and look after our car so that it keeps going. The window of tolerance is a great tool for recognizing how we're feeling, what's happening for us, and what we might need to be aware of heading into a tough situation. So if I know I'm coming into a big week, Monday morning, I've got meetings back to back. The fun thing about everyone using Zoom now is people don't book meeting breaks. So like, oh, you're free at 11:30, I'll book 11:30. But I just had a meeting finish from 9:30 to 11:30. I've had a 2-hour non-stop meeting. I've been sitting down that whole time. I need a 5-minute break. So it can be really tough to plan. And physically and mentally, we've got to stay focused and also aware of how we're feeling so we can give our best. Now, window of tolerance is this simple concept. So picture a window. You got a window in a house. Now, my window is a standard cottage size window. At the top here, this top line, above this line is called hyperactive. And the feelings we feel in that zone are anxiousness, high energy, anger, fight or flight responses. So anything below that line inside our window of tolerance, between the bottom line and the top line, we can cope with. So if I start my day and my partner says to me, hey, we've run out of toilet paper, or we've run out of eggs and you can't have your breakfast. And I go, oh no, I've got to get to the shops before I start my meetings, but my meetings start in 15 minutes. I didn't get up with enough time. Suddenly I get stressed and I go up. But if my window of tolerance is normal, at its normal capacity, I've had enough sleep, I've eaten well, I haven't been too stressed lately, I can probably cope with it. But if I haven't slept well enough and my window's a little bit narrower, that might send me into the hyperactive zone. Now, if I'm in the hyperactive zone, my critical thinking begins to shut down. I can't problem solve. I can't control my responses as well as I could when I'm within my window of tolerance. So I might be rude to my partner. If it's in a work setting and my window's narrower and my boss says, hey, Alexei, that thing you were going to get to me and the deadline was today, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done it. My window's narrower. I might end up in this zone and I can't even get out to my boss, hey, I haven't done it. Or, hey, I've been so full on with everything else, I haven't been able to prioritize that. Can we negotiate some support or an altered timeline? Your brain can't think critically or creatively or problem solve above that line very well, if at all. Now, the bottom line is the hyperactive zone. So below that hyperactive zone, that is similar to the hyperactive, so similar to the high mood. The low mood, once we cross that threshold at the bottom end of our window, our brain starts to shut down a little bit. We want to curl up, we might want to sleep, we might feel overwhelmed, we might just freeze up. That's the freeze response. It's sort of that caveman survival response, the fight, flight, or freeze. Some of you might have heard that before. But understanding how big our window of tolerance is and understanding what's happening for us. So if I know I'm impacted and my window is narrower, and I know the kinds of responses my body has when I have big feelings or stress or those feelings that can create problematic behaviors, I can actually start to create a bit of a checklist about how I'm traveling. And I can then look to utilize some positive coping mechanisms to look after myself. So in my next video, I'm going to have a chat about positive and maladaptive coping strategies. and what they can look like, what they've looked like for me, what they've looked like for people that I've supported, and how you might be able to, using these first two tools, understanding how we feel and starting to get in tune with our bodies and what our body's telling us, and understanding our window of tolerance, how we can start to live healthier, happier lives, maintain our mental fitness and look after ourselves so that we don't end up with burnout, that we don't end up feeling really stressed and anxious all the time, or we don't feel angry, or even, the other end of the spectrum, at the low mood, really low and sad and sleepy and overwhelmed. Hopefully you've enjoyed this chat today. I am a qualified mental health first aid instructor. I've worked in mental health and inclusion and community for a really long time now, about 10 years. I'm really passionate about it. So if you've got any questions, feel free to flick me a line. I'll include my email and contact details below. There's also a great little handout on the mental health self-checklist that I've shared there for you, which explains the window of tolerance and explains how emotions come into our body and what we can do to practice recognizing them and how that can help us. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Stuck in my brain.